All right, we're going to read an article about an island named Palmerston, and it's titled "The Island at the End of the Earth." And this was an article that appeared um, in a news magazine put out by the BBC. It is one of the most isolated island communities in the world. The tiny Pacific island of Palmerston is visited by a supply ship twice a year at most, and the long and hazardous journey deters all but the most intrepid visitors. What's more, most of its 62 inhabitants are descended from one man, an Englishman, who settled there 150 years ago. 9 days of constant movement, 9 days in a boat, unable to stand, 9 days with the fear of being hit by a tropical storm, thousands of miles from rescue. The Pacific Ocean is big, far bigger than one would imagine. This is the journey to the island at the end of the earth. Part of the Cook Islands, Palmerston is one of the handful of islands connected by a coral reef which surrounds the calm waters of a central lagoon. But within this entire area, the reef sits too high in the water for seaplanes to land, and outside it, the ocean is simply too rough. It is also too far from anywhere for a normal helicopter to fly to. The sea is the only access. So getting there is not easy. After 2 days of flying from London via Los Angeles, we set off by boat from Tahiti. After 5 days of sailing in our small yacht, the clouds turn to menacing black. The strength of the sun has gone, and a worrying chill hangs in the air. A sudden clatter of heavy rain hits the side of the boat. A bolt of lightning strikes the sea. With the sail at full height, the strength of the wind pushes the boat over a full 60 degrees, dragging us sideways through the water. There's very little that can be done once the sail has dropped. The boat is at the complete mercy of the elements. And there is no one to help. During 9 days at sea, we see nothing. No other ships, no wildlife, and no aircraft, not even at 50,000 feet. Nothing. This extreme journey prevents all but the most determined of visitors from ever reaching Palmerston, a tiny patch of green surrounded by thousands of miles of ocean. The height of the island means it is not visible until just 2 miles away, and in bad weather it's simply impossible to see. Over the years, tens, if not hundreds of boats have hit the reef hiding just below the waves, leaving the sailors stranded. The latest wreck, brought down just 3 years ago, sits on the beach with a gaping hole in its side. The parts of these ships, engines, wooden planks, and masts have been salvaged by the islanders and reused. Nothing goes to waste here. Learning how to safely navigate the natural barrier takes years of practice. Even the boat we arrived in, a mere 34 feet long, had to be moored 500 meters off the beach to avoid striking the coral. As we finally near Palmerston, a small boat, shining in the sun, roars towards us, swerving left and right through the reef, the little outboard motor screaming. "Hello, hello, I'm your host. Hook your boat up here. We'll get you over and you can grab lunch. I'll look after you from here," shouts Bob Marsters, his blue-green Hawaiian shirt an almost perfect match to the crystal clear water. Bob is the head of one of only 3 families on the island. They compete for the handful of yachts which pass every year, and the winners of this race cater for the needs of the visitors. The islanders pride themselves on their kindness and revel in the extra company. This generosity in the island's etiquette, legal system, and traditions have all been passed down through the generations by word of mouth, and they are all the legacy of one man born in the English country of Leicestershire, 10,000 miles away. William Marsters was Palmerston's first permanent inhabitant 150 years ago. Marsters lived in the Cook Islands from the 1850s, and in the early 1860s he was appointed caretaker of Palmerston by its then owner, a British merchant, John Brander. He moved there in 1863 accompanied by his wife, a Polynesian woman, and 2 of her cousins. He covered the island with palm trees, and for the first few years Brander's ships stopped by every 6 months or so to collect the coconut oil he produced. But then the visits slowed. 6 months between visits became 3 years, and eventually they stopped altogether. John Brander had died. Marsters was granted possession of Palmerston by Queen Victoria. His wife's cousins became his wives too, and together the 3 couples had 23 children. Before his death in 1899, he split the island into 3 parts, one for each of his wives. Today, all but 3 of the residents are direct descendants of William. William Marsters built his own home on Palmerston from shipwrecked timbers and driftwood found on the shores at the time of his landing, and it's still standing after nearly 150 years. Only the corrugated roof is recent, and the original is still underneath. The photo far right shows how big and sturdy the timbers are, and still how perfect. Today, the building is used as a storeroom and a cyclone shelter. Approaching the beach, the revs of Bob Marster's small craft drop and we drift quietly towards the white sand. It is absurdly beautiful. Fish in their hundreds swim below the boat, and as the clear water ripples, a shark glides past with stingrays in tow. Welcome to my world, a land of white sands and coconuts. Nothing goes wrong in Palmerston, says Bob as we arrive at his tin roofed home. Hey, boy, grab these fellows a coconut. Drink, drink. Bob's son knocks off the top of a coconut using a machete, and I sit down on a plastic garden chair and drink. Find out more. You know I'll love this place. All the people fighting wars should just come to Palmerston and go for a swim. Play some volleyball, says Bob. No need for all that fighting and killing everybody. No one fighting here. I listen to the wind rippling through the leaves of the palm trees. Then, in one of the most surreal moments of my life, surrounded by 3,000 miles of open ocean, I hear one of the islanders listening to her favorite song. Not a gently lifting melody, but rather, the Venga bus is coming, the distinctive sound of cheesy Euro dance pop. Officially a New Zealand protectorate, Palmerston receives many of the modern amenities that we take for granted: housing, power for a couple of hours a day, the internet for a couple of hours a day, even for a lucky few, a mobile phone signal. Yet the people of Palmerston have no shop, just two toilets, and rainwater is collected for drinking water. Money is only used to buy supplies from the outside world, not from each other. That's one thing I'm so proud of with the families living on Palmerston. We work together, we love each other, and we share, says Bob. For instance, when I'm out of rice or flour, I can just go next door, and if they have, they give. I'm really happy people don't sell things here. The supply ship hasn't been for 6 months, but we don't cry over rice or steak. We just manage with our coconuts and our fish. But the day the freighter arrives, it's like Christmas Day, he laughs. Bob is the mayor of Palmerston and lives at one end of the main street. It is a strip of sand no more than 100 meters long and is home to just half a dozen buildings. This is the main road. No bus stops here, no buses to wait for in Palmerston, says Bob with a hearty chuckle. Sitting proud on the right-hand side of the road is the church. It is the center of community life. It is also one of the newest and sturdiest buildings on the island. The painted white bell that hangs in the porch, another of those things salvaged from a wreck, is the only part that remains of the previous church. With no land for thousands of miles, Palmerston takes the full force of any storm, so the islanders tie their buildings to surrounding trees. In 1926, a typhoon crashed into the island, and the waves, they say, swept the old church off its foundations. The waves came crashing over the building here, Bob explains, pointing to William Marster's old house, which is more than 20 feet tall. The church was sitting on coral, stone, and it was moved 200 meters inland, the whole building. Our fathers and mothers went to move back the building. They rolled the building on coconut logs. They rolled it all the way back. There is an established rhythm to life on the island on Sundays. The bell rings to summon this Christian community for a service at 10, and there's no work or play allowed until after 1400 hours. After church, it is time to eat. As a guest, I am given a table to myself. 4 pots are lined up in front of me. There is fish, rice, chicken, and a sweet pastry. Bob's 4 children look longingly at the table. The entire family must wait until the guest has had their fill before the rest of the family are allowed to eat. But after about 30 seconds, Bob breaks into the food. Normally, I'd wait, but you're my friend. We know each other too well to wait. And before he finishes his sentence, he is chewing profusely. Eat, eat, he says, swinging his arm across the table. I want to make you too fat to fit back on your boat. You have to get thin again before you can leave. Stay on Palmerston longer. Food is a huge part of life. Fishing takes up most of the day for many Palmerstonians, and as a visitor, it is virtually impossible to walk anywhere without being offered 4 separate lunches. Bob's brother Bill is a special offerer of lunches, a member of the council and a proud fisherman. Here's a picture of Bill Marsters fishing near Palmerston. The fish are declining, he says. Before there would have been hundreds of fish in schools, but not today. It's not easy. The previously bountiful stocks of their favorite parrotfish are being depleted quicker than others. So standing on the back of his tiny, patched-up aluminum rib, Bill heads out past the reef and into the towering waves in search of other fish. The pockets of his favorite camouflage trousers filled with line and hooks. After 2 hours with 4 long lines dragging in the water, we have just two, a barracuda and a wahoo. The previous councils in the 90s put a ban on the parrotfish for 2 years, says Bill, but 6 months later someone said, "We need money for Christmas," and it just opened from there. We can't really do anything because we're going to get a lot of objection. Anything we say to the people, they just ignore it. Fish is the islanders' staple food and their only export. 1 or 2 tons of parrotfish are frozen and collected by the supply ship, which comes twice a year to deliver essential supplies such as rice and fuel. Or that is the theory, at least. Sometimes the ship doesn't turn up at all. Just 2 years ago, it didn't come for 18 months. The island's remoteness presents other challenges too. Something as simple as going to the dentist becomes a major expedition. When the island's oldest inhabitant, 92-year-old Mama Aka, went for dental work at Rarotonga, the capital of the Cook Islands, it took her 4 days to get there. But after the short procedure, she had to wait 6 months for a ship to bring her back. Here's a picture of Mama Aka at the island's church. While some see this isolation as one of the attractions of life on Palmerston, in other ways it is a menace, particularly as everyone, except 2 teachers and a nurse, are related to each other. Bill had 6 children with his first wife, a woman he thought was his second cousin. But when she was very young, she had been handed to another family to bring up, a common practice in Palmerston if parents need help. In fact, she was Bill's first cousin. Here's a picture of Palmerston Lucky School. "I heard that if you marry a close family cousin, it will have an effect on the baby," he says, "but I didn't believe it until our second to last child. He was a normal child right up to 6 months. We headed off to New Zealand for treatment, but there was nothing they could do. Her father and my father were brothers. I didn't know it, but by the time we found out it was too late, we already had kids. There's nobody on the island. That's why the intermarriage is going on." For some, Palmerston's isolation is a reason to leave. Between 1950 and 1970, the population was as high as 300, but now it is just 62. A third of the population are children, and all look healthy and happy as they attend classes at the island school. But many of them are hoping to leave for the cities hundreds of miles away, where amenities are better, wages are higher, and where, perhaps most importantly, there's a bigger choice of potential spouses. When Mama Aka was growing up, some people used to marry their half-sisters or half-brothers, she says. But the children of today are looking further ahead. Maybe they plan to marry away, she says. Only a few of them come back. They don't really get in touch with the families. A royal visitor. The main street is the hub of island life and the setting for community celebrations. One of the most important is for the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. Mama Aka, the island's oldest resident, remembers the day in the early 1970s when the royal yacht Britannia arrived off Palmerston Reef. The Duke went for a swim, and the place he took a dip, a deep pool where the beach falls steeply towards the water, has since been known as the Duke's Pool. "When he came ashore, we celebrated," says Mama Aka, "and every year on the 28th of February, everyone takes the day off to repeat those celebrations. We start with the church service, and then every family prepares a table of food. We have a feed and we have singing," she says. 16-year-old Shikana Marsters wants to become a lawyer. She may be the first pupil from the island school to go to university and may even have the chance to study at Harvard. "I wanted to go to New Zealand for university, but now I hear there are some opportunities in America," she says. "I want to pursue my career, but I also want to come back, and Palmerston will always be my home. I'll want to come back whenever I can, but I think my career would come first." She currently studies English, algebra, American history, and the basic life of Christ. Next year, she's adding law. All of these are part of a Christian homeschooling program taught at the school. She has also studied in New Zealand. "You have a lot more opportunities there, a lot more stuff to do, more friends. Ever since I went to New Zealand, I've wanted to go back. I don't get bored here, but I get discouraged. I swim, fish, play guitar, talk. That's about all." Palmerston has always been a place where people come and go, but while some intend to visit, others have the experience forced upon them. In the 1950s, Lieutenant Commander Victor Clark's boat was shipwrecked, and he lived on the island for 9 months while it was repaired. This experience features heavily in his book, On the Wind of a Dream, a saga of solace. When he died, aged 97, his daughter Rose made the long journey to Palmerston from her home in Devon to scatter his ashes.